Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Barnes.
Hello, I'm Marie O'Neill.
Marie and I are excited to introduce a new series for the Kepler College YouTube channel called Let's Talk Astrology Business. So I'm Lori Barnes. I am the astrologer who helps people navigate their life purpose using astrology. I am an astrology coach. I do consultations. I'm also the marketing director at Kepler College, and I teach a course for Kepler called Marketing for Astrologers.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marie O'Neill, and I help people find their joy and passion in life. I am an astrologer, life coach, and author. I teach life coaching skills to astrologers at Kepler College, and I also work in private practice. Today, we have 10 tips for you. 10 tips for how to start an astrology business. The first tip is define what success looks like for you. It's very important for you, if you're going to be a professional astrologer, to know definitively what success looks like to you, not to someone else, but to you. One of the first questions is, why are you becoming an astrologer? We all have a myriad of reasons of why we want to do anything. And if you can answer the question of why you want to be an astrologer, it's going to go a long way into helping you be successful. And when I say answering the question of why are you becoming an astrologer, you're looking at, is it for financial stability? Is it for recognition? Is it to help other people evolve? The other thing that you're looking at with how to define what success looks like for you, is how do you value yourself? Now, value and self-worth are sometimes confused and is being the same thing, and they're not. When I'm talking about valuing yourself, it's really about how you allow yourself to be treated. This is based on your actions and how you are allowing other people to treat you, because that's a big deal too. One of the other points that I need to make here is you want to visualize yourself as a professional astrologer. This is something that, as you are aware, I'm sure a lot of the athletes visualize themselves going through a game and winning the game. It's as though they're actually playing the game in their mind, and it sets them up for success and to win. You can do this as an astrologer too. You want to look at, say, what your day looks like. What does your week look like? What does your month look like? You want to get a feeling of this, and this is going to help you with your success. Lori, do you have anything you'd like to add to this?
Those are wonderful points, Marie. And yeah, I think that this really speaks to our mental tape that we run in our head,
Mhm.
right? The language that we use, and how important it is to use positive self-statements and reframe when those things come into your head that may not be so positive. Like when that inner critic comes out and starts to tell you that you're not good enough or you're not ready, you haven't earned your seat at the table. It's taking those statements and reframing them and really thinking about, like you said, what does success look like for you? Because when you envision it, then you can manifest it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mhm.
And I think that ties in really nicely to our second tip, which is only compare yourself to yourself. It's so important that you're not putting your goals and your strategy against somebody else's, because their benchmarks aren't the same as yours. Your approach to your business should be customized for you and nobody else. And that means that you can only compare yourself to yourself. Whatever growth you make and whatever success that comes your way has to be compared to yourself. If you're comparing your success to somebody else's, it's apples to oranges. And right. And some of the things that you want to think about that's going to help you determine what you do in your business is, how much time do you have? Are you maintaining a full-time job while you're launching your business? What kind of resources do you have? It's a big difference if you have the money to hire help right away, or if you have to do everything, and over time, when you have more income, you can get help. And then there's other responsibilities you have in your life. If you're a parent, or if there's other dependents relying on you, you don't have as much time. And that's why you can really only compare yourself to yourself. Yeah. And to do that, yeah, you want to, what is your current phase and stage of business? That's where you're starting. And then your chart. We're astrologers, so bring your chart in. Your pace and timing isn't going to be the same as somebody else's. And so taking into consideration all of those things, you can really only compare yourself to yourself. What do you think, Marie? Do you want to add anything onto that?
I agree with you there. I know when I first started out as an astrologer and even as a life coach, I looked at other people who were successful and what they were getting done, and I wasn't accomplishing my goals at the same rate as other people were. But what I realized is I was working on my own and they had help. This is something that this is why it's so important for you to just compare yourself to yourself, because you know what you want. You know how much help you can bring into your business to help you grow. It's going to be different for each individual. So that is perfect. Make sure that you just compare yourself to yourself, which leads us, of course, to the next point that we want to make, which is to create a business plan. You really do need to have a business plan. And the reason is it is something that you can follow. It needs to be simple. You don't need to go to an attorney or anybody to create it. Just one page. Sit down and write out what it is you want. This is your strategy for success. It's something that you can follow. It's concrete, and it actually increases the likelihood that you will be successful. You want to, every business basically needs to have a business plan, and it needs to be unique to that particular business. As we said before, your business is going to look different than another astrologer's business. So what do you want? The elements of a business plan are, of course, you've got to have the name, your mission statement, and the mission statement is really, what do you stand for? You want your target market, your niche. You want to then decide what type of astrology you're going to provide. All of that goes into the elements of building a business plan, and make sure that you have a budget. How much money are you going to spend on your business? And this is really key. The other thing that you want to remember is it's okay to update that business plan. As a matter of fact, it's imperative that you do. Review that business plan frequently and update it as you grow. Do you have anything to add to that, Lori?
Yeah, just a word to that last part you were just talking about, evolve. I always think of business plans and marketing plans as works in process. Like they never actually really are complete. Yes, you can save 1 year and leave it in that year and make a copy and make your next year's business plan, but it's always evolving. It's not something that's set in stone, and it should have that room to breathe and to adapt. That's the evolution, that as you go forward in your business, you're going to notice things like, oh, this worked really well, that didn't work really well, or I really enjoyed doing this type of work, but I didn't enjoy so much that. So you might be switching up your services. You might be updating your forecast for how much income you're going to take in, or set some projections, some goals for what you want to do. And of course, real life is going to modify, clarify what you projected. And being able to project well what your business is going to do is a good skill to have, and it takes some time to develop that. So I think what we're saying is just to be sure that you give your business plan the space to breathe and evolve and adapt, and you want to stick with it long enough to give it a chance, but don't be so rigid that if something's not working, that you don't change gears. That's balanced flexibility. I talk a lot about that in my marketing class and in my private practice, because it's so important to have flexible balance, or balanced flexibility. And we mentioned the marketing plan as part of the business plan, which it is. It's a very important component in your business plan, and it's very large. Your marketing plan is also a standalone document, and it's one that you will work with regularly. A business plan, you might make it for a year and have some strategic goals in there that are 3 years or 5 years out. Your marketing plan is about what you're doing to get your business out there, to get people to know who you are, what you do, how you help people. So you want to have a marketing plan. And the most simple way to think about going into business, which is going from a student or a hobbyist to where you charge money for your services and you rely on it for some or all of your income, you have to have 3 components. It's that bullet point at the very top. You have to have a product, which for most astrologers is a service. You have to have clients, and you have to have a way to make the transaction where they are purchasing a service from you. So you want to have those 3 things, and your marketing plan speaks to all of those things. What you're going to offer, what are the things that you charge money for, and you want to have a strategy, and you want to be sure to think about, because you can't always be sure up front, but you want to think about what can you actually do. Marketing can become overwhelming. There's all the different social media platforms. There's your website, there's email marketing, there's writing, publishing. It's like, when do you even have time to see clients? So you want to think about the strategy, and you want to keep your marketing plan at a reasonable rate. And this is your benchmark. Don't compare yourself to others. You don't want to do what somebody else is doing just because they're successful. It needs to match your business, and it needs to be something that you can actually consistently do, right? Marketing is one area that's very easy to bite off more than you can chew, and you can be over platformed before you even realize what you've gotten yourself into. Over platformed being showing up on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and doing something on TikTok and YouTube and whatever others there are out there. That's a lot of platforms, when you probably only need 1 or 2 where you show up regularly, consistently, and with engaging content. And then the other thing to mention with your marketing plans is you want to think about getting help even before you can afford getting help. You want it to be part of your plan. And if you can, the best way to do it is to hire someone just before you need them, so that you already have them ready to go, trained, and can take work that moment when the work comes up. Now, a marketing plan is quite complex, and we're saying as a tip that you want to create one. We don't have the time to go into the pieces of it, but if you are interested in this, please let us know in the comments below, because we'll be back with more videos and we can focus on what you want to hear about. But also there's a course at Kepler where you can work on your marketing plan with a group of people, and I do teach that class. Marie, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh my goodness, I like that there is a marketing class, because that is something that I think everybody needs who is an astrologer. Now, when you are working on your marketing plan, one of the things that I just want to add to that is make sure with social media, you're only doing what feels right to you. For example, if you are not the type of person who is on Instagram or TikTok, don't do it because you won't follow through. You want to make sure that whatever you decide to do is something that is your superpower, unless you can hire somebody else to do these things for you, like TikTok or Instagram or X or I mean, because for example, I don't use X and I don't use TikTok because that's just not my forte. But that's the only thing that I want to add to the creating the marketing plan. It's still neat. Don't do something that is going to cause you to feel as though you're swimming upstream. The next area that we want to point out is branding. Your brand is key. This is defining how you are unique. How are you differentiating yourself from other astrologers in the community? It's also how people are going to see you. It's the personality of the business. When someone sees your brand, what feeling arises within them when they see that brand about you? I mean, we all know the brands, a lot of brands that are out here, McDonald's and Burger King and Walmart. And what do you think about when you see those brands? That's what you are doing with your business. The elements of branding, of course, are you have to have your name, your logo, your tagline. You've got your color palette, the font, even the fonts that you use to create your logo or to create your name. That adds to your branding and it needs to stay consistent. You want to make sure that you spend time, as much time as you need, coming up with your name and your logo and all of this, because to rebrand means starting over from ground zero almost. So you want to do your due diligence to make sure your branding is done well. Your niche, which is very important. These are the groups of people that you're actually going to work with. Are you going to specialize in just in relationships and working on and doing composite charts and synastry? Are you going to specialize in people who are suffering from trauma? This is your niche. That's going to help you tremendously with your marketing if you know your niche. There are, of course, branding guidelines. You want to keep them simple and because you really don't want to have this be grandiose. The other thing is you have to decide whether or not you want to use your surname or whether you want to use a name that represents your niche. To decide whether one is going to be better for you or the other is, of course, a personal choice, but you also have to be looking at whether or not you're going to have someone inherit your business, whether you're going to sell your business down the line. There's a couple of things that you need to take into consideration when you're deciding to use your surname or your business name. You also want to be consistent with your brand across all platforms. And that means if you're marketing your website, whatever it is you're doing, that particular brand needs to be imprinted on that particular platform. What would you like to add to that, Lori?
I would like to talk a little bit about the niche because we are experiencing a renaissance in astrology. I think there are a lot of new astrologers entering the professional field, which is fantastic. We all know social media is in most people's hands, in their phone, in their computer, on their watch. It's everywhere, which means that there's a lot more input that people are hearing every day. So the amount of distractions is larger, and now there's more people offering astrology services. It's very different than it was 20 years ago. And if you're new, if you're brand new, or you've been in business just a few years and you are not well known, you can't really compare yourself to some of the more well-known astrologers, right? We talked about that in tip number 2. That's really important, because when you're trying to get known, people are going to want to know what you do, what makes you different, and that's a niche. So I'm recommending that any new astrologers just starting their business or have been in business for a few years and they are trying to become well known, that you pick a niche and you really focus on it, because that's how your people, the people who will respond well to your services, or people who need your services, people who want your services, they need to know that you have something that they want. And in order to do that, you really need a niche. I'm not saying that generalists in astrology don't exist or are not a good thing. There are many generalists out there, but it's going to be really hard for people to figure out what you do, or if you're the right astrologer for them, because other people are niching. So you may do relationship astrology fantastic, but if you're not branding yourself that way, and another astrologer is, then this person's going to go to that other person because they say that they're a relationship astrologer and a relationship astrologer, whereas you're not. And you could have equal, you could even have better services, but the person isn't going to know that. So I just really like to talk about the niching as a very important thing to do. Now, the next tip is number 6, get a website. This is really important. It's your storefront, right? People don't have brick and mortar places anymore. Most of us don't. If some people do, but for the most part, we're talking about doing your business online. And that means that your website is your store. And think of it that way. Your store is always open. It's open 24/7. And you want to think about the user experience. When somebody shows up at your website, they're in your store. What you want them to do is stay. What you don't want them to do is enter your store and a couple of seconds later leave it, because there wasn't anything there that they found that they wanted. There wasn't anything that kind of pulled them in and kept them interested. Some of the things listed here that are recommended or tips from us for your website that is going to help you right away with your business is set up automations. People like automations. They're at your store. It's open 24/7, but there's not always somebody there for them to talk to. That's different than walking into a physical store. So you want to have the ability for them to interact with your website, even if you're not there to speak to them. The most important or popular and probably expected automations are scheduling, where they can schedule an appointment with you and they can check out. So they know they walk away from your store with an appointment book. They've already paid for it. They know what they're getting and when they're getting it. I think that's a really important thing to work on as soon as possible once you get your website up and going. Through your website, you can share engaging content, and this is the exchange between you and your current clients or potential clients. And some of the important elements that you want to have on your website, your About Me page is very important. People want to know about you. Believe it or not, an About Me page really talks more about what you can do for your clients, but you still want to have some information about you and what you do. I highly recommend that you get a subscription. It's a form, technical term that I don't have time to go into detail on, but I'm sure we can do another video about that. But a subscription, start an email list as early as you possibly can, because then you have a way to contact your people. If you're only contacting people through social media, you don't have their information. If you want to leave that platform, you don't have their information. If for some reason Facebook shuts your account down, which has been known to happen, you lose all that information. And we know that social media is only serving up about 10% of your post to your followers. So email is the way to get people into your system, into your ecosystem, into your community, and a way for you to be able to contact them when you want. You have that direct line. And then some of the other things you want to have is a footer. You have to have a privacy policy. There's privacy laws these days, so you want to make sure you're meeting the laws. And testimonials are always really great to have on your site. A website's going to give you credibility. It's going to show that you're for real. You're not a hobbyist. You are a professional, and it's expected. People expect professionals, any kind of professional business, to have a website. So it is really important that you have one, even a simple one. And right. And it is easy to get it started. You don't have to be a developer. You don't have to be able to write code. You do have to have some technical ability. It's not completely tech free, but it's not as scary when it comes to tech as it was 5-10 years ago. And Squarespace and Wix are two platforms that you could get started on fairly quickly and easy. Marie, what do
Oh,
you have?
that is, yes, that is so perfect. That's wonderful. The only thing that I would reiterate is that email list. That email list is paramount, and you don't even realize how important it is until you need to send out a notice for something that you're doing. It could be that you're teaching a class, or that you're going to do a workshop, or you have a sale that you're running. Who do you market it to? Your email list, because people have signed up for your email list, they are saying they want to receive information from you. And your open rate and your enrollment rate in whatever it is you're doing is going to be exponentially larger if you have an email list. So go ahead and start that email list, start building it. All it takes is to start with one person who signs up for your email list, and just keep going from there. I'm sure we'll probably talk more in detail in another video about some of these components, because we can do a deep dive into each one. But that's perfect. Love that. The next point that we want to make is developing your services. This goes back to, of course, your niche. If you have your niche, it's going to be easier for you to develop your services. And when I'm talking about services, it's what you offer. Are you going to be offering forecasts, or are you going to be doing horary or relationship astrology? Are you going to offer coaching? Because some astrologers, myself included, I offer coaching services in addition to the astrology. What are you going to offer? How much time are you basically going to allocate for, for your readings when you actually see the client? Meaning, are you going to see your clients in 90 minutes or 120 minutes? That's all important there. So, and you also have to make sure that you include your prep time with with your services. How much time is it going to take you to actually prepare for a reading or a coaching session? That is that helps you also when you're developing the services that you want to offer. Your pricing, you need to look at your budget and how much money you need to make to help you determine the pricing, and also looking around at the community to see what other astrologers are charging for the services that you're going to be offering, and pay attention to how experienced the other astrologers are. Have they been in business for 20 years or 30 years or just 1 year? The pricing is going to reflect that. So make sure you look at that. You want to make sure that you are a match for what is your ideal client? This goes back to your niche once again. Who is your ideal client? You want to make sure that you're using the client language, not your language. So if your ideal client is from a particular group, use the language that they use. And make sure that you do your best to not use astrology ease. I call it astrology ease or astrology language when you are talking to that client because they may not understand that. So you want to make sure that you create copy text that is focused on the value, what the client value, and how they're going to benefit. You also want to be okay with evolving your services because, as Lori mentioned, you may offer a particular service, start and once you get into it a year later, decide, that's not going to work for me, or maybe I need to add something else to it. So be okay with doing that. What would you like to add, Lori?
I wanted to talk about naming your service. It used to be, I'd say decades ago, or maybe not so long ago, people would give names to their services that were really creative and use fluffy words, really interesting words, cryptic words. That doesn't fly anymore. People are moving too fast. They're getting a lot of input. They're getting way too much information and they're processing it very quickly. And if they can't process it quickly, they're going to move on by. So when you're thinking about naming your services, try to name it as close to what it is as you can. If you're doing relationship readings, relationship consultations, call it relationship consultations or some play on words, but that it's very clear that's what you're doing. If it's a natal consultation, it's clear that you're doing natal work. If it's medical or career oriented, whatever it is, I would just remind you that things have changed and that people need to be able to grasp very quickly what it is that you're offering.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention is that I sometimes see people actually skipping this part or not giving it much thought. I'm an astrologer. I have my website. I'm on Facebook. Hey, I'm an astrologer. And then it's like, okay, well, what do you offer? What can I buy from you? And it's not there. So make sure that you think about this. It should be happening right alongside or before you create your website because you're going to want to create a page that explains your service. So if you have all that other stuff going on and you think, oh, I'm just going to, throw up a natal, throw up a relationship, whatever, I would say that you want to give that more time because you're going to want to, the way you do a natal chart consultation is probably different than everybody else. We all have our approaches, the way that we enter a chart and even what we focus on in a chart. If you work primarily with women, that might look different than if you work primarily with somebody who, I don't know, is a teacher, and teachers can be, any gender that exists. And so you can think of all kinds of different examples, but what you want to do is develop your services as the beginning part of opening your practice. And you want to do it in conjunction with your website and also with the concept already of who your ideal client is, which is our next tip. So our next tip, number 8, is find your people, find your ideal client. Ideal client is definitely a marketing term. If you Googled it, you're going to find thousands of pages on it probably because it's such a important concept in marketing. It's really important that you know who you want to work with because you get to choose that to some extent, right? I mean, if somebody comes and signs up, that is somebody coming external outside of your control. But what you can control is how you brand yourself, how you put yourself out there, the language that you use. It's going to attract a certain group of people. And you over time, if you haven't been seeing clients, then you're going to develop this. But if you have been seeing clients, you probably already know that you like working with a particular kind of person, somebody who's seeking to find what their life purpose is, or somebody who's trying to have a baby, or somebody who wants to elect marriage dates, whatever it is that you enjoy doing and you want to provide those services, you're going to be looking for people who need that service. If you want to help people find dates for getting married, then you're probably looking at a particular demographic and psychographic of people. People, there's, I don't know what it is, but there's probably a range of age that the majority of people are getting married, let's say between the age of 25 and 35. Then that would be part of who your ideal client is, and so on. So it's figuring out who you want to work with, where do they hang out, because that's where you want to show up. And you want to use the language that your ideal client uses, because you want to attract them. You don't want to attract people that you don't enjoy working with. You want to attract people that you do enjoy working with. And you want to attract people who want the kind of services, who can benefit from the services you provide, if that makes sense. So that's why it's really important that you're clear on your niche. You're clear on what makes you unique. That's your unique selling point, USP. It's another widely used marketing term. And there's a couple of quotes, and I don't know off the top of my head who said this. So, but this is a very popular marketing quote. I did not make it up. I wish I could take credit, but I can't. And it goes like this: if you're trying to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. And what happens is it creates indifference towards your brand, and you don't want indifference, right? In fact, you want to repel people, because that means you're attracting people. If you're attracting people, you're probably repelling people. And if you're repelling people, you're attracting them, because it's very clear, oh, you're not for me, or, oh, you are for me. But if your ideal client's like, maybe you are, maybe you aren't, I don't know, they're going to keep looking. And you don't want that. You want them to know, oh yeah, you're the one for me. You do exactly what I'm looking for. And once you know who that is, and you're doing your marketing, you're creating your marketing plan, eventually you're going to get to the point where you're creating engaging content, because that's the bridge. That's how you're getting into the email box or the social media platform where they're hanging out. That you're going to catch them by creating content. They're going to see that content. They're going to want to learn more about it from you. And then eventually, hopefully, they'll become your client. Marie, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh my goodness, that is perfect. The one of the points that I want to make is be okay with saying no to a client, to a potential client. If you get a gut instinct that person isn't someone you should work with, say no to them. I'm here to tell you from experience, if you don't say no, you're going to get yourself into you're going to end up having an issue. We all know about Venus, and Venus is about desires. Venus, if you are not aware, she says no more than she says yes. This goes back to what Lori is saying. You want to have your ideal client, because if it's not your ideal client, and you might end up having to stretch yourself too far to actually work with the person who isn't your ideal client. I'm not saying you don't ever work with someone who isn't your ideal client, but it's going to be easier for you if you know how to say no to people who just don't fit what it is you do. So start building your referral list and send them to someone else. So perfect. All right. The next point that we want to talk about is creating engaging content. This is my favorite part, because what you want to do there is, if you know your niche, who you're working with, then you can tailor what it is you're creating to the audience. And this is important because you are a problem solver. People who come to astrologers have issues that they want to resolve, and they want you to help them, to give them tools that they can use to resolve their issues. And please remember, it's not about you, it's about the client. So make sure that you tailor anything that you create to the client. Even your astrology readings have to be tailored to the client. You want to, of course, create consistency, and you want to be able to repurpose. And this is for marketing. This is for marketing purposes. And if you're going to create a blog, you can take that blog and have it visual. You can have it just audio. You can also have it printed. And so that is one way to get the word out, of course, about, with content. The other thing is you can take that content and repurpose it for, uh, you know, months later. You can take a blog and repurpose it and redo it. Storytelling is something that I use a lot when I'm creating content because people resonate with stories. And in our industry, we know a lot of stories, especially because we're dealing with mythology. So you can always use mythology to help you create a story that you can tell the client or that you can put in a blog, something that resonates, that you feel will resonate with the client, and it is making a point. You're not going to just tell a story to be telling a story. There has to be a purpose to that story. You want to, of course, use the appropriate level of astrology, which means that you want to speak in layman's terms. I run into a lot of people who have had astrology readings and they didn't understand what the astrologer said because the astrologer was using astrology jargon. You want to make sure that you use layman's terms with people. You want to make your point, one point, different ways, because you want to make sure that you're giving the client an opportunity to actually grasp what it is you're saying. Use visual aids, use video, use images, use graphs, whatever it takes, but mix and match so that you can make these points in different ways. You want to use a conversational style in blogs. How many of you have watched TEDx or any of the TED videos? They're always conversational. Gone are the prior way of being more presentational. Now people want to connect with you. So you want to make sure that your content connects with the audience. Ask the audience what they want. You can do this in various ways. You want to stay up to trends, with trends, meaning you want to continue to read other people's blogs. You want to also look at your niche and what they are doing. This is going to help you to know what their needs are. But also, you can query them to find out what their needs are. And even in an astrology reading, it's always a good idea to ask the client what it is they're looking for so that you can give them what they're asking for versus what you think they want. And make sure that you always, always include a call to action, whether you're doing an astrology reading or whether you're creating content for a blog or a video. There needs to be something that you're asking the client to do so that they know what their next steps are. Would you like to add something to that, Lori?
Yeah, I would actually like to demonstrate using a call to action
Ah,
by asking our audience what they want. So this
yeah.
is this is a marketing video on marketing. I'm going to do some marketing. We would love to hear from you what you want to hear more about from us. We are marketing and business people in addition to astrologers. We both have private practices, we're both coaches, and we both teach. And we would really like to be sure that the videos, the content that we're producing through this series for you covers what's most important to you. So please take a moment to put in the comments below what you would like to hear more about. Where are you struggling with your business, whether it's your business plan or anything related to marketing? Feel free to put it in the comments below because we're going to look at all those and
Yes.
we're going to let that guide us to the next episode that we'll be doing because we're going to be making more of these for you. So that's the call to action. Please put a comment down there below and let us know what you would like to hear more about. All right, our last tip for this video today is brand and content consistency. This is really important. Consistency is so important because we get busy and we may have had the intention to write that blog every week every other week, every month, whatever fits for your schedule, and then it doesn't end up happening. And I say that it's more important to do one blog a month than to do a blog one week, a blog the next week, and then you can't get to it the third week, and then you don't get to it the fourth week, but then you do one the fifth week, and then you skip a week, and then you do a week. People don't know when they're going to hear from you. It's inconsistent. It's better to pick a strategy or pick a time frame and stick with it. And I think that's even more important for social media, because now you're working with an algorithm, and that algorithm watches your behavior in posting, and it's going to like when you do things a certain way. And again, that's a whole video conversation, so I won't go into algorithms here. It's just to demonstrate how important consistency is. So when you're deciding what you're going to do, like what kind of content you're going to create, and then how often you're going to create it, I would recommend that you go conservative in the beginning and then increase the frequency, rather than putting this really big goal and not be able to maintain it, because that's not going to work so well for you. If it's your blog, there's no algorithm penalizing you. But if you're talking about a social media platform, it is important to be consistent. There are other things to take into consideration. That's only one. But I will say, if people don't hear from you often enough, they are going to forget about you and your brand. And if they get a random email from you like every 3 or 4 months or twice a year, they may not even remember who you are or why they signed up for your email subscription. So when you launch it, do try to be consistent. Try to do at least one blog a month. I would say more, you want to build up to more, but start at least with that and then build over time. Brand recognition. Whenever you're creating any kind of content or you're doing anything where your brand is being shown, you have to stay consistent. Well, you don't have to, but it's best practice if you do. So just think about that. If you go and have your platform on Facebook, use your brand colors, use your brand voice, use your brand images. If you go and open an Instagram, you don't want it to look completely different. You want people to see, oh yeah, that's the same. I followed her over there, and now I see her over here. And I know it's the same person, because not only is it the same name, but it looks the same. It has the same feel. It has the same vibe. Probably doing slightly different things on those platforms. But in terms of the brand, you're staying within your branding guidelines. You are the brand, whether you choose to use your name or not. If you're a small practice owner, like most astrologers, you're the brand. And keep that in mind, that if you are, well, you can see where my background, that's very me, that's who I am. If you meet me out in public, I'm the same. I have these kind of colors and this way about me. If I was really like a goth person and I wore all black and crosses and that wouldn't be authentic, and people will catch on to that. So you really want to make sure you stay within the brand and know that you are the brand. So I wouldn't build yourself a brand that's really different than who you are, because that's just too hard to do, to be two people, but it's not authentic. So, try to make sure that they work really well together, like who you are and who your brand is. And of course, we're speaking to a specific type of business, a small solopreneur, one person practice. Yes, you may have a team, but the whole brand is you, and you want that to be consistent. It then is threaded through, it permeates everything you do, your offers, your services, your speaking engagements, the things that you write about, any kind of published material that you have. It all should be consistent. It all should fall within that branding umbrella. And as I said earlier, most algorithms do like consistently, and you're going to reach more people socially by keeping your brand and the content that you create consistent. Anything you'd like to add on that, Marie?
Oh my goodness. There's a couple of tips that I'd like to add to this. One is how you see yourself is going to be different than how other people see you. What you can do to help you determine what look you want for yourself to help you create your brand. Talk to your closest friends and ask them how they see you, how they view you, and see if that matches, of course, the brand that you are or how you want to be seen by your ideal client, because that's important. And like Lori says, she has her own style. I have my own style, and mine is really, I love clean lines. I love suits. I love business casual. I look quite conservative, and therefore the people that I pull to me in my niche, a lot of times they look that way too, because they're drawn to me. And so that's why you want to also make sure that your brand is you, because you are the brand, just like Lori said. The other thing is, there was one other point that I wanted to make about if people don't hear from you, of course. One of the tips, one of the things that you can do is create 2 or 3 blogs before you start or you do initiate blog posts, so that you stay ahead. If you, for example, when I'm doing videos, I create a month's worth of videos a month ahead. So, and then go ahead and schedule them. The reason that you want to do this is because you might get busy. Something could happen and won't be able to get to it. But if you do 2 or 3 or a month ahead, then it's already done and you don't have to worry about it, which gives you a little bit more leeway. But that's pretty much what I wanted to add to that. And we, of course, want to thank you. Thank you for listening, for being here. Please feel free to put your comments below. We want to hear from you, what you want to hear from us, what you want to hear us talk about. And yes, Lori.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that if you did want to study with us, we both teach at Kepler College.
Yes.
Our courses don't run every term, but we wanted to show you the courses that we do teach so you can check in. And if you wanted to go deep into any of these topics, we do that in our classes. And I do have a link there below if you want to check that out.
Absolutely.
And here's information on us if you want to contact either of us. We will be checking the comments, so do please take us up on the invitation to put some comments below on what you'd like to hear about in the next episodes, and we will be back with another episode in the near future. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And please be sure to like and subscribe to this particular series.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.